Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast presented by the Undroppables and sponsored by Analyst Depot. I am one of your hosts, Ashley. This is my co-host, Michael.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, Michael. Chaos, absolute chaos. The past 48 hours have been, right? I mean, it's like the last week, but the past 48 hours have been like, I can't sleep at night type of thing.
Yeah, it's really, it's exactly what happens every year, and it's a lot of fun, but it's also extremely overwhelming. Like, I haven't been able, not that this is that different from any normal day of my life, but I haven't been able to accomplish anything because my ADHD, it's just like, ooh, Adam Schefter.
Alert.
Ooh, Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
Ooh, like every 10 minutes.
Yep.
And maybe, it's on me. I have tweet notifications on. It's fine. I've admitted to myself I'm not going to get anything done. Like I said, not that different from a normal day, but I'm here for it. So,
yeah, I told you I was at work and I put my phone down for 10 minutes to do work, what I was getting paid to do, and had 31 Twitter notifications from Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport that I had to take my lunch break and be like, I can't deal with this right now. I really do need a break. And it's been like that. I had to have do not disturb turned on. I could turn off the notifications, but I had to have do not disturb turned on because it's I can't sleep because it happens all hours of the night. We
are a first world tragedy. We truly are.
No, really.
We truly
are.
That's okay.
It's okay. Well, we can jump right into it. I know we have a lot. Today we're kind of going to break down. I could call all of this news, but we're going to talk about general news, and then we're going to talk about key signings and releases and all that jazz of what this past 48 hours have been. And unwillingly, that even though I put it on the show sheet that I don't want to talk about it, Deshaun Watson update. The 4 teams right now that seem to be in the race for him are the Saints, Browns, Falcons, and Panthers. The Falcons kind of came as a late addition to the pack. Reports about, I'm pretty sure it's their general manager talking about how they were friends and they worked together in the past and stuff like that. So that's interesting that they jumped in, I guess. Saints have always been a front runner in this, but the Browns, their meeting, they flew to Houston to meet with Deshaun Watson. The meeting ran fine, but their plane left late. So it's officially, as Blake would call it, plane tracking season. So they tracked their plane.
Me more of the NORAD Santa thing.
Right? Exactly. You're
That's
tracking
what I
Santa.
Thought about. Yeah. I don't know. I still do that every year. So
Me too. You have to keep the magic alive. But people are now tracking planes to get updates on the Deshaun Watson thing.
The news is not dedicated.
Exactly. The news has been that he could have made, news could have come as early as today. So really it's an everyday thing that's it could be today. But this was the first day that everyone was, I'm pretty sure most of the meetings are done and he can finally make his choice. But again, Browns executives flew to Houston, met with him, plane left late. But that caused some chaos for the Browns. Recent studies, what am I saying? Polls have showed that 50% of Browns fans don't want Deshaun Watson to come. I said studies. You know what I mean?
Who? Yeah. What is going? Where are you getting this? Not that I doubt you. I'm just legitimately. This sounds way too official for this podcast.
No, I'm pretty sure where I saw it was one of the official Browns updates things, not on Twitter. It's a website, a Browns dedicated website. So I don't know if they just polled their subscribers or if they went out into Cleveland and whatever. But Baker Mayfield issued a statement this morning, I believe. Big long statement. I'll read a little bits and pieces. He says the past 4 years have been truly life-changing. Since he was called to Cleveland, there's no hidden meaning in this message. It's just to thank Cleveland for embracing them. They have made many memories. He has no clue what happens next, which is the meaning behind his silence. He can only control what he can, which is trusting in God's plan. He's given this franchise everything he has, and he's done that at every stage, every level. That doesn't change no matter where he takes his next snap. He just is saying thank you to the fans who embraced who he is and the mentality that aligns so well with the city's hardworking people, and that Cleveland will always be a part of his and his wife Emily's story. But yeah, that he has been silent throughout like this whole process, but that kind of came out of the blue. And I saw a tweet that perfectly summed it up, and I wish I had the exact tweet, but it was like the Eagles didn't do it to Jalen Hurts, the Giants didn't really do it to Daniel Jones, but the Browns did it to Baker Mayfield. Like that type of thing, that they're exploring other options. And
I think that's stupid. First of all, I think it's a very dumb take. I think it's really stupid, and I think it's extremely head in the clouds, ignorant.
No, but I agree with it though, because it's like not fully. I don't.
You think if the Eagles could have taken a meeting with Deshaun Watson, they would have. It's that simple. Deshaun Watson chose. No, it's been reported. Deshaun Watson chose the teams. Like the way this process has worked is teams sent their offers to the Texans. If the Texans were like, cool, that's a good offer, they said, okay, Deshaun, where do you want to go? These 4 teams, the Saints, the Browns, the Falcons, and the Panthers, are the ones that both Deshaun Watson and the team said, this can work for me. Now Deshaun's meeting with them, and then he has the final call. If the Eagles could have gotten a meeting with Deshaun Watson, I don't know if if that trade ends up going down. If they could have, they would have, because they did submit an offer.
You get what I'm saying, though. I don't fully believe it. It is the business, but I don't know. After so many months of being you and I have talked about this before, that is the business to say this is your guy and you can go elsewhere. But I don't know. They built a team around Baker, and now, and that's the other thing is you kind of can't decide if they're in rebuild or if they're going for a championship. So
I mean, if they get Deshaun Watson, they're going for a championship. Like that. If this was Patrick Mahomes, that's one thing. But Baker has done nothing to say.
I'm not saying he's the guy.
No, but that's the thing, though. Patrick Mahomes would have a right to be pissed off. Patrick Mahomes would have that right. Even Matt Ryan, to a certain extent. I get it. If he wanted to be pissed off about it, fine. Baker Mayfield does not have the right to be pissed off.
Yeah,
I get it. If he wants to be upset about it, that's totally understandable. It's a human thing in a business that doesn't care about human feelings a lot of the time. That's totally understandable. But the wording of whatever that was, of the Eagles didn't do this to Jalen Hurts, the Giants didn't do this to Daniel Jones. If the Giants could get Deshaun Watson, they would. Deshaun Watson clearly doesn't want to play in either of our teams or either of our cities. Their offers weren't good. But assuming that teams don't have an issue with the legal ramifications and the possible suspension, they would happily do this to whomever is on their team, minus 5 quarterbacks in the league, 6 quarterbacks in the league. Because if you're talking about just talent, there's very few guys in the league that you would really want to take over Deshaun Watson.
I'm curious if the Lions sent out a request.
That's a great question.
It is a great question.
I
have to track that down. I get what you're saying. I do, and I think you've not full. I still believe parts of it, but I get where you're coming from completely. And I think it's just that. I mean, it's just par for the course for what's going to happen for wherever Deshaun Watson goes. Everybody from a fan base is going to be decided, and I get it that he can buy his way out of it with being a good quarterback and wins and stuff. But at the end of the day, that's the Deshaun Watson update. You want to give us an update on Amari? Oh, go ahead, go.
Real quick, I want to say one more thing, because I think it actually reigns very related, and it's back when Peyton Manning was a free agent. Mm-hmm. The Eagles had just come off of signing Mike Vick to a very large deal. Mm-hmm. It might have been 1 year out, or maybe they were about to sign him, something like that. He was their starting quarterback, and he had just had a career year. Andy Reid took a meeting with Peyton Manning. Yeah. And Andy Reid was asked about it. And he was asked, you have Mike Vick. Why are you meeting with Peyton Manning? He's like, well, I have the opportunity to get Peyton Manning on my team. Of course, I'm going to give him a call and ask him. Well, what does Mike Vick think about it? Mike's not stupid.
Yeah.
Like it's that simple. Like Baker. Sorry. I could go on this for another 15 minutes because I didn't realize that tweet existed, and now I'm angry about it. But it's a business, and it's about winning football games. And if you can prove that you're going to win a Super Bowl, that's one thing. And if you haven't, then that's another thing. So,
yeah. Do you have a new favorite for landing spot out of those four? I mean, we didn't really talk at all about the Panthers, but
I mean, the Panthers still make a ton of sense to me. The Panthers and the Falcons, like even before the Falcons really existed, they kind of were in the back of my mind because that's where he grew up.
Yeah.
Like that's where he's from, and he went to college in South Carolina, which is near Panthers playing North Carolina, but still like that was the local team where he went to college, Clemson. I know he had a somewhat close relationship with that franchise leading up to the draft. He had a close relationship with Cam Newton, who was the quarterback for the Panthers at the time. So there was never any speculation that he was going to get drafted there, but I always thought that was interesting. And, they're willing to take shots on quarterbacks. So I don't know. I guess those two are my favorites, but Vegas thinks it's going to be the Saints apparently. And the Browns realistically are probably the best team minus a quarterback. So I don't even know.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like roster wise,
does he want to live in Cleveland? Like
that's the thing. Like the other three are warm weather cities, or at least fairly warm, but that one sticks out. But they're the only one with like a decent enough roster to make a run. I don't know. This whole thing sucks.
I wouldn't say they're like leagues above the Saints. The Falcons are. Yeah.
They don't have any wide receivers. No. Like literally none.
And the Panthers, I think the Panthers have a better roster than people give them credit for. I think they're a very young team, but they're not necessarily as close to competing because they're a young team with a lot of unproven talent. But like, I think they're a couple years away. If they get a Deshaun Watson, they're probably like 1 or 2 years away. But that's beside the point. Moving on because that took longer than it should have. That's my bad. Amari Cooper got traded. I forgot that had happened in between our last podcast and this one, but Amari Cooper got traded to those Cleveland Browns, and Jarvis Landry was then, I know this is in the next section, but kind of goes hand in hand. Jarvis Landry was given permission to seek a trade, and then he was cut like a day later. So yeah, I mean the Colts, not the Colts. The Browns once again take a shot on a wide receiver from the NFC East. It's getting paid a bunch of money. Yeah, I mean honestly, I thought the fit was pretty good with Baker. Because Amari Cooper is a very good route runner. He's very good at getting open. And Baker, I think, is the type of quarterback that wants to see the guy that's already open rather than throw him open. So, yeah, I think it would have been a good fit. But now who knows?
Now you're not sure. Didn't you read that comment as you were reading?
Yeah.
Didn't you?
Yeah. That would be Jake. I don't know what the Colts are going to do at quarterback, Jake. I don't think anyone knows. Maybe Baker. Who knows?
Yeah. Our big releases of the past few days, Julio Jones happened today and was probably one of the biggest ones. Released from the Titans. Carl Nassib was released from the Raiders. Austin Hooper and Jarvis Landry were both released as well. Were there any other big ones? Yeah, from the Browns. Sorry.
I don't think so. There's been a collection, but I think those have been kind of the bigger ones. I mean, Julio was a year after he got traded to the Titans for. It's only like a 2nd-round pick or something. I mean, still a decent amount. But
he did not really have a good year.
Yeah. Austin Hooper is very interesting. I mean, he signed a big contract with them like 2 years ago. I was puzzled by it at the time because they had David Njoku, who they did just franchise tag, and last year they drafted a guy 2 years ago, maybe. I forget his name, but I liked him coming out of the draft. So,
yeah, I think he's probably one of like the more underrated in the tight end class. Like he did even fairly well with Njoku there. I think he could get a starting spot somewhere and be fairly decent.
Oh yeah,
I like Austin Hooper.
I agree.
Hey, all right. Which position? I mean, we're going to go down the list of positions, but do you want to take this one or do you want to move on? Like, do you want to do the next one?
Oh, I mean, I can take this one. That's fine. Okay. So we're just going to go through this. We're going to talk about it position by position. And to start, we're going to start with quarterbacks
first.
Yes. We're going to kind of just go in order of, big contracts. And we're not going to get into every single contract that was signed because I'd blow my head off if I tried to do that. But to start, we had Tyrod Taylor sign a 2-year contract with the New York Giants, $17 million. Really interesting. I'm assuming that he's the presumed backup. And I'm sure also a bit of a safety net would be my guess for Dabble, if things don't work out how he hopes with Daniel Jones. And also, he's had injury issues. So I think investing in the backup quarterback is good for them.
I love it. Like really, really, really love it. And I think Daniel Jones, like when he had Eli Manning there, like he wasn't really competing for his job. You know what I mean? Like it was Eli Manning. But I love this because I think Tyrod was played fairly well before his injury this past year. And I think it's helping Daniel Jones to realize like you need to step it up or you're going to have someone else behind you who will take the starting job. And Mike Glennon was not that person, unfortunately, or Jake Fromm. So I love Tyrod Taylor behind him. I think a safety net is the perfect way to describe it. And I don't know. I think it's a really interesting signing, and I'm really happy with that rather than I think that's a second tier level quarterback than a third tier, like for a backup.
Yeah, I mean, he's a proven starter in this league.
Yep.
Like I think in the right situation, he could be a starter again, at least a bridge type quarterback. It was interesting. I did have to look up. I was wondering if Tyrod and Dabble crossed paths in Buffalo, but it looks like they just missed each other.
Okay.
So really no news to report, but I had.
The news is that there's no news.
Yep. Next up is probably obviously Tyrod made the most money theoretically, but I think this is probably the biggest one on the list, and that's Mitch Trubisky going to the Steelers to quote unquote compete with Duck Hodges. What's his actual name?
Mason Rudolph.
Yeah. What? Oh no, Duck Hodges was the other one. Mason Rudolph just sucks. I don't know what I'm talking about. There's some connection in my brain that's being made. It's fine. I think Duck Hodges was like the other one that was there and was bad also. It's fine. Mitch Trubisky is going to compete with Mason Rudolph to be the starting quarterback, which means Mitch Trubisky is going to be the starting quarterback. Oh my God. Yeah, he's there too.
Yeah.
No, but that's not the other. That's not the other one I was thinking about. This was like 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, just it's fine. No, yeah, Dwayne Haskins is there too. But yeah, and I think Dwayne Haskins, he was like tendered by the Steelers as well, so that's interesting. But it seems like it's going to be like a 3-way-ish competition, really kind of a 2-way competition with Mitch Trubisky being the favorite. I don't think Mason Rudolph stands a chance. And I think what's really interesting is I don't think they're boxing themselves in either. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted a quarterback high if one falls to them, but they're also not necessitating that they have to. Because I think Mitch is probably one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league. I guess. It's hard to know how much to blame on Nagy and how much to blame on Mitch, but it'll be interesting, I'm sure. Can be worse. Honestly, it's better than what Big Ben was last year.
Yeah. And it's appealing because like it's a lot of unknown with a roster that's really good right now. Like the Steelers roster minus QB could go far in this league. Yep. So I think it's interesting to see if he'll be able to like step it up and be able to push the Steelers team, or if he's just going to be mediocre and kind of leave them where they currently are.
Yeah, I mean, he went from a very, he was drafted by a very manic franchise in the Bears, spent a year with the very stable, what the Bills have built, and now he's in one of the most stable franchises in the NFL.
Yep.
Like, I don't think that'll hurt him. So I think this is probably his best chance to succeed, best chance to kind of reset the view of him. There's a good chance this is kind of his final shot if this doesn't work out to like be a starter in this league. But I'm intrigued, and I'm curious whether or not they will look elsewhere in the draft for a quarterback or if they'll go another way.
Yeah.
Next up, we just got a bunch of backups.
Resigning of backups.
Yeah, so I'm just going to kind of blow through them real quick. Colt McCoy re-signed with the Cardinals for 2 years to be the backup. Brian Hoyer re-signed for 2 years with the Patriots. A lot of Patriots fans love that move, as he's basically like a player coach at this point.
He's a decent enough backup.
Yes. Chad Henne re-signed with the Chiefs to be their backup. Fun story. Back in 2017, in college, I drank a lot of water, and I was wearing a Carson Wentz jersey, and my friend, whose uncle happens to be Chad Henne, came up to me and told me, and this was in the middle of Carson's, like, what would have been an MVP year. He told me that Chad Henne was a better quarterback than Carson Wentz. And so I took my shirt off and I tried to fight him. He was a friend, so
Water does
he didn't
that
beat
to you.
me up. Yeah, I was really angry, though. I was really upset. I stand by that, but I can't see Chad Henne's name without thinking about that, like, vividly.
Yeah, that's a good story. I'm happy you interrupted that for the story. That was a good one. I was a little bit worried where that was going to go, but I like that story.
It gets a little worse, but I'll just leave it at that. Nothing really bad happened. Chase Daniel, former Eagles great, re-signed with the Chargers to be the backup. Joe Flacco, former Eagle great, re-signed with the Jets to be a backup. And Tim Boyle, the man, I don't know how he's still getting jobs. I don't know how he's a backup in the NFL. It blows my mind. I don't get it. 1 year for the Lions to be the backup behind Jared Goff again, I guess. And then Kyle Allen went to the Texans on a 1-year deal to be there.
And it's like, it's Jared Goff. It's Jared Goff. Like, you need a good.
I don't get it. I don't know what they see in Tim Boyle enough to keep it. Like, they've re-signed him. This wasn't like we drafted him and he's still on a roster. Like, they re-signed him.
Yeah.
It's very confusing.
It's not like there were no other options. Like, there were other options. And like, you have Jared Goff as your starting quarterback and you don't have a good backup. Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it.
That's the
whatever.
Lions.
Good for Tim Boyle. I mean, he's living the dream.
That was a good laugh. All right. Running backs. The biggest one of the pack is probably Chase Edmonds, who signed with the Dolphins, 2-year, $12.6 million. The Dolphins were really in need of a good, stable running back, and I think that's a great pickup for them. Do you have any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, well, so I'm also going to introduce the next one. James Conner re-signed with the Cardinals for 3 years, $21 million. I expected the Cardinals to bring back one of the two. I did not expect Chase Edmonds to be gone within like the first 10 minutes of free agency, which I'm pretty sure it was.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think it's enough, like, for fantasy players out there. Like, I don't think it's enough that they won't address the position in the draft as well. But I think it does say that I like Chase Edmonds in that San Francisco type offense that we assume Mike McDaniel's going to be running in Miami. So that's really interesting. He's not much of a between the tackles kind of guy, but he is fast. He knows where to be when the plays break down. He knows how to get open, and he's a good pass protector. So I think it's going to be great for Tua. I think it's, like, honestly, for the offense, I think it's just going to be a really good safety net and an experienced player that they didn't really have last year. And the Cardinals, I think
fairly young too. Like, having an older guy who has been in the league longer, that is good for them.
Yeah, and for James Conner, like, good for him. Honestly, I never expected him to be able to sign this big of a deal after all the injury concerns in Pittsburgh and after they let him go. But he balled out last year. I think the guaranteed money is always what really kind of matters. And with running backs, especially, I don't expect it to actually be a 3-year deal. It's probably more of a 2-year deal, maybe even a 1-year deal. But yeah. So,
and I agree. I think at some point in that draft that they pick up a running back too, because that has been an issue for Miami the past couple of years. So, so you said James Conner. James White signed with the Patriots again. That's supposed to be highlighted. 2-year, $5 million. Nothing crazy. I mean, a lot of people expected that. The crazy one of the running backs in this free agency is J.D. Mckissick, who originally was going to the Bills and has now changed his mind to go back to the Washington Commanders. He's not the only flip-flop of free agency so far. There was always
not even close to the funniest one.
No.
But he does join the ranks of former Eagle great Frank Gore.
Yes.
Who had a historic run with the Eagles franchise. J.D. McKissick will go down in similar history with the Bills. a historic run.
Yes, absolutely.
Very similar rushing
Bills
totals.
legend. Bills
Exactly.
legend.
I love
J.D. McKissick.
Can I just point out how much I hate that Frank Gore was like the first guy to do that, and he did it with the Eagles.
Yeah.
Like, we have enough going on that we get made fun of for, but like it had like the first year they do that, and it's like the first guy to
Frank
really,
Gore.
and it was Frank Gore.
And it was Frank Gore.
I hate Chip Kelly. All right, moving on.
That deal was 2 years, $7 million. I'm pretty sure that's the one, the Washington thing. Not positive. It's the 2 years, $7 million.
7 or 8
deal.
million.
Something like that. I couldn't be sure if the contract I was looking at was the Bills or the whatever. Brant, you and I sat on earlier and said Brandon Bolden went to the Raiders.
I don't believe that.
I googled it because I was like, that's weird. And we saw it on PFF, and then I googled it, and it's true. There's no deal in place like fully yet, so there's like no money or anything I can tell you about. But
no, they're expected to.
Surprising. Okay. That was very surprising.
Honestly, now that I actually have seen that it exists, I'm not at all surprised because Josh McDaniels is there. Like, there's someone else that they signed, I think, that did not come as a shock to me. But it just made a lot of sense because, again, Josh McDaniels is going to start to bring in his guys, start to run his system. And Brandon Bolden was a guy that actually played pretty well last year during, through injuries for other guys. And I think that's a great addition, even just as a deeper, like third, fourth string running back for, a new system for a lot of guys there. So,
yep. And then there's a couple of deals that are still up in the air, like Tevin Coleman to the Jets, Michael Burton to the Chiefs, staying where they are, Tevin Coleman and Michael Burton, Trenton Cannon to the Titans, Alec Ingold, Dolphins, little stuff.
Wait, you did not even mention Blake Hampton's favorite player of all time, Dare Agumbawale.
Oh, yeah,
who
sorry.
I didn't realize signed somewhere. How did I
didn't realize I skipped over him. Sorry.
These guys.
$3.3 million with the Texans.
Oh man, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, no, Blake, he loves him some Dare Agumbawale. So good for Dare Agumbawale.
Yes.
I just like saying it's such a fun name, Agumbawale. Great name.
Bring us into wide receivers because This has been probably the craziest position. I mean, guards, but this has been one of the crazier positions in free agency so far.
Yeah, so obviously we have Devante Adams and Chris Godwin. They got franchise tag. Devante Adams has come out and said he won't play under the franchise tag. We'll see. People say that every year. There's not really a lot we can say about that right now. Mike Williams.
Yeah, but it was a money thing. That's why, obviously with the franchise tag. But again, he wants more money. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just got paid. A lot. He wants more money. Is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure it's partly money and also partly years, some sense of control or
stability.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. Mike Williams signed last week. We talked about that. Mm-hmm. So not the biggest contract, but something that wasn't too surprising was Michael Gallup signed for 5 years, $62.5 million. He's obviously coming off of a season-ending injury, but he signed back with Dallas after they traded Amari Cooper. So it's going to be Gallup and CeeDee Lamb as the main wide receivers. As they also lost Cedric Wilson, who, going out of order here, he signed for 3 years and around $23 million with Miami. Then we have the yearly addition of let's overpay a wide receiver that has never proved his worth in the NFL to any consistent level to be our number one wide receiver for the next 20 years. And this year, the winner of that award is Christian Kirk, who signed 4 years, $72 million with Jacksonville. And
becomes the third highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Christian Kirk.
Yup.
Oh, yep. Trent Baalke.
Yeah. I'll kind of talk about this a little bit now. And they also, Jacksonville also signed Zay Jones for 3 years, $24 million as well. He came from the Raiders, played pretty well last year after they kind of lost a lot of their receiving options due to unforeseen circumstances. But yeah, a lot of people are giving Jacksonville a really hard time because they have spent a crap ton of money. And that's understandable. A lot of times, and we talked about this last week, I said that there was going to be a wide receiver that gets overpaid It always happens.
It's always
Kenny
a wide receiver.
Galladay. A couple years ago, it was, I feel like Robbie Anderson never really did it, but there's always one that did not prove himself at all, and he's going to get overpaid by someone else. But here's the thing. Like, I think a lot of this has to do with Doug Peterson and what he's seen in his time in the NFL. Because the guys they signed, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, and they also signed Evan Ingram at tight end when they already have Dan Arnold. Evan Ingram was only a year, $9 million. I think that's actually a really good deal for a high upside kind of player who can't catch anything, but is, theoretically in the right place to catch it. But like, one, you're in Jacksonville and your franchise is garbage. You have to pay a Jacksonville tax. And it's going to be more than almost every other franchise at this point because you're bad. But I think Doug Peterson, I said this when he was hired. I think it's great for Trevor Lawrence because he has seen what it's like to build up young quarterbacks from the very beginning. He saw it in Philadelphia. He saw it in Kansas City. And I believe he saw it in Philadelphia before he was in Philadelphia the second time. With Nick Foles originally, I believe, was the first time he was in Philly. Beside the point. But if there's one thing I think that he probably learned in that period of time was you look at Carson Wentz's rookie season, and his number one wide receiver was Dorial Green Beckham. He's bad at football. Look at the wide receivers that Carson Wentz had the majority of his time in Philly. Yeah. Like in 2017, when they won the Super Bowl, you had Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, and Torrey Smith. And even that was like, okay, fine. You had Zach Ertz, great. After that, you had nothing at wide receiver because Torrey left, Alshon was blah, and Nelson went back to dropping everything that ever was thrown his way. Trevor Lawrence, I think that he's approaching this the right way. He knows that with this franchise goes Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence needs NFL help around him. I get that you don't want to have to overpay for a Christian Kirk or a Zay Jones, and you'd rather, give him, if you're going to pay someone the third most amount of money, why not give it to Devante Adams or whatever? They're not going to, anyone will pay those people that money. A lot of people were willing to pay Christian Kirk, but probably not $72 million over 4 years. Jacksonville probably had to add $10 to $15 million just to get him to sign with Jacksonville. And if that's what it takes to put NFL level receiving talent around Trevor Lawrence, I think it's 100% worth it. I actually think it's an extremely smart move. And because you need him to be able to grow. And if he's throwing to garbage, that's not going to happen. It won't matter if he gets better. And I think, Christian Kirk isn't the third best wide receiver in the league, but he's not horrible either. I mean, he's a talented wide receiver. And same with Zay Jones. I mean, he's flashed in the pan a little bit. You still have LaVisca. I believe Marvin Jones is still there under contract. You do have good pass catchers. Throw in Evan Ingram and Dan Arnold, whom I actually really like Dan Arnold, and I'm sad that Evan Ingram went there, but I like their approach. I get that it doesn't always work out when you spend a crap ton of money, but I don't think they're spending money to try and win games right now. I think they're spending money to help grow Trevor Lawrence, and maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, but I think that's the correct approach. And I like their moves.
And I like putting it that way because honestly, I didn't even think about it that way. I really just saw the contract and kind of giggled about it, but I think that's a great way of looking at it. And it's also you're paying to diversify, right? You can't give Trevor Lawrence all of one type of receiver or all of, one type of pass catcher because he needs to have these options for these route runners. And looking at how they're putting their pass catchers together is you can tell that they're kind of diversifying what they have on the field. You don't just have, guys who are great at slants or curls or straights, you are giving them good options. And I think each of these receivers plays a different style that will, oddly enough, mesh together well to help grow Trevor Lawrence. So
that's when it's up to, and this is a different conversation entirely, but it becomes up to Doug Peterson to put them in the right positions to succeed. You have to use them the correct way. But also, just because we're talking about Jacksonville, they franchise tag Cam Robinson, their left tackle, and a very, very awesome signing by them was Brandon Scherff. Who is an awesome guard, perennial All-Pro, perennial Pro Bowler from the Washington Commanders. They got him for 3 years and almost $50 million. It's a lot to pay for a guard that's in his early 30s, but again, if Trevor Lawrence has good protection, he's going to be able to grow. Nothing hampers the growth of a young quarterback more than them having to, see ghosts. Ask Sam Darnold. So yeah, I think that's all for the Jacksonville Jaguar talk for the moment.
You mean you don't want to just keep talking about the Jaguars?
I mean, I will. I love Doug Peterson, and I will do anything to defend his honor. Okay, one more thing. DJ Chark, formerly of the Jacksonville Jaguars, signed on a 1-year deal, $10 million with the Detroit Lions. Interesting. I kind of thought he would get more, but it sounds like this is going to be a market reset for him, or that's what he's hoping it's going to be. Because again, he probably thinks he's worth more, but he's coming off the season-ending injury. He was coming from Jacksonville, which is just tumultuous, and he's hoping that going to Detroit will somehow put him in a better position to earn money later. Odd choice, but I guess it can't be worse than Jacksonville. Jared Goff needs to throw the ball somewhere.
And it's like you said Jacksonville tax, in order Jacksonville has to pay to get people to go there. If you are formerly of the Jags of right now, you have to take a pay cut to leave.
Because you probably didn't perform because you were with Jacksonville. Russell Gage. This one surprised me. He signed for 3 years, $30 million with Tampa Bay. Really interesting. Oh, Tom Brady unretired. Oh,
did we not talk about that?
No, because that happened on like Saturday or Sunday.
Oh, yeah. That's when I said, is there any other news we're forgetting? And then you said, I don't know. I'm overwhelmed.
Feels like it's been a month since that happened now. But yeah, Tom Brady unretired. So they franchised
unsurprising news.
Yeah, Mike Evans obviously is back with the team. They still got a couple young guys there, and they signed Russell Gage. I'm honestly a little bit sad about that. I kind of wanted Russell Gage to go somewhere where he could be like a very clear number 2 option. A little bit. Low-key, I was kind of hoping he'd come to Philly. He was a name that was on my list of you wouldn't have to pay a ton, and I think that he was better than people probably think that he is. But he lands in a place where until Chris Godwin's fully healed, whenever that is, and even after that, he's probably going to fall into some of Antonio Brown's targets, his role, whatever. I think he's a good player. So I'm excited to see him outside of Atlanta. And Tampa Bay is a very interesting place with Tom Brady back. I already mentioned Cedric Wilson and Zay Jones, but Braxton Berrios re-signed with the New York Jets for 2 years and $12 million. Rashad Higgins, we don't have the money yet. We don't have the numbers, but he is planning to sign with the Carolina Panthers, adding to that receiving room. And Alan Lazard was a restricted free agent tendered by Green Bay, and I think that comes out to around 1 year and $4 million. Yeah, so
I also do want to backtrack 1 second to running backs, because breaking news that Raheem Mostert, former 49er, is signing with the Dolphins on a 1 year, $3.125 million.
That is the biggest layup that I could have seen coming prior to free agency.
Yeah,
he just goes and joins Mike McDaniel. So
yeah,
and kind of like I said earlier, is I didn't see what's his face as the end all be all for the Dolphins. I didn't think they were done adding to that room, and there we go. So Chase Edmonds. So yeah, good for Mostert. I hope he's healthy.
Yeah, that's the thing. But we can lead into tight ends. Mike Gesicki, Dalton Schultz, David Njoku, we talked about them, franchise tagged. Zach Ertz is staying with Arizona. You and I talked about how he was a big name to watch in free agency, but he stays put for 3 years, $31.6 million. Will Dissly stays in Seattle. Max Williams stays with Arizona. Mo Alley Cox stays in Indiana. There's really only 3 big ones, and you already
passed way too over Mo Alley Cox, who's the largest man to ever play football on this planet. Now we can move past Mo Alley Cox.
So those guys stayed put. CJ Uzomah was a surprising one, and I didn't love it at first, but
I thought he'd get paid somewhere.
Yeah, and after seeing how Jets are like kind of doing well in free agency, it made I don't have as low. I don't hate it as much anymore. But CJ Uzomah signed a 3-year, $24 million contract with the New York Jets.
I like it. I mean, I think the Jets needed to add to their tight end room. They really haven't had success since the one dude who I love existed for like half of his rookie year and then stopped existing, and then they traded him. to Minnesota. I completely forget his name, and maybe that's for the best. But
Is he there right now?
I don't even know. Hold on, I'm just gonna look it up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's helpful to that offense. It's Chris Herndon. I miss Chris Herndon. I miss when he was relevant. But yeah, I think it's good for the offense. I think it's good for an ascending young quarterback to have kind of a solid tight end. I mean, I talked a lot about that last week with like Zach Ertz, especially, and how useful a guy like that can be to a young quarterback. You know, CJ Uzomah isn't quite on that level, but he's a lot more athletic, and I think he's more of a field stretcher at tight end. A little bit more in the I can't even really say George Kittle mold, not really. But he's going to get open and it's going to be down the field. So I like that.
Also paired with, right before the show started, Tyler Conklin is also signing with the Jets.
No.
Yeah.
No.
You missed that one?
I love Tyler Conklin.
Yeah.
Dang it. Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That one. Rip.
I don't have the numbers on that yet. I don't think the numbers are out. It was really less than an hour ago that news broke. But yeah, he is going from Minnesota to the Jets.
And speaking of crowded tight end rooms, OJ Howard, yearly breakout candidate every year since he was drafted, is heading to Buffalo to team up with Dawson Knox. So that's interesting. I mean, they're just really trying to add more pass catching bodies to that offense. 1 year, $3.5 million, nothing huge, but interesting.
Yep.
And I just want to say, I think the Zach Ertz signing is great for Arizona. Obviously, I love Zach Ertz, but also everything I said last week about Zach Ertz and his ability to be a safety blanket, I think that's huge for Kyler, especially with losing Christian Kirk, AJ Green, and really everyone else they have at wide receiver at the moment is DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore going into his second year. So Zach Ertz becomes a very, very safe, consistent option for that offense.
I completely agree. And I watched his name to leave because I think he could have used, and I think he probably did use the free agency in order to get a good amount of money, and he did. And I think he works very well in that offense. And I liked the way he played last year. I think he has played an entire year, will be, another entire year with them will be really beneficial for him. And I'm happy for him. I think he really could have gone anywhere, minus a few teams at the top who have a stable, high paid, like the Chiefs and, but
Eagles.
He could have went anywhere, and I'm kind of happy he stayed.
Yeah, and also, if you had just traded for Noah Fant, former first-round tight end, still on his rookie deal, I think the most natural thing to do to follow up that move is to sign your injury-riddled tight end, Will Dissly, to a 3-year, $24 million deal. Makes total sense. I'm not questioning Seattle's decision at all. I think it's a very intelligent choice. And
Seattle, known for making intelligent decisions.
They're so dumb. They're so bad at things.
Yeah.
How do they win all the time? It was because of Russell Wilson. That's why.
This year's going to be really interesting for them.
It's going to be great. It's going to just
it's going to be thrilling football.
Great. And people are like, I never understood this. Everyone was like, oh, Seattle might go for Deshaun Watson. It's like, no, they're not. They're trying to lose. Like, they just had a franchise quarterback. They're not. No. What? It never made sense to me. Every time I saw that discourse on Twitter, I was legitimately like, what? Like, what the hell are you thinking? What is your train of thought? Oh, a team need quarterback. Team just had quarterback.
Yeah.
Quarterback left. They said bye quarterback. Like, think just a little bit. God, I hate people.
Yeah. I don't have anything to add because it's true. Like, your outrage is right. But probably like an hour before we started this show. What?
Are we not going to do the offensive line first?
Did I scroll past it?
No, because it's on the other list.
Oh, right. I forgot about the other list. Okay, go.
I'll just kind of run through some of the more notable names. honestly, at offensive tackle and center, there were very few notable names that were signed by other teams. Mason Cole was signed by the Steelers for a 3-year, $15 million deal, and Austin Blythe signed with the Seahawks. Basically, all of the other top names that have signed already, with the exception of Morgan Moses, were retained by the team that they were coming from. Morgan Moses signed with the Baltimore Ravens for 3 years, $15 million. Guard is where it got absolutely insane. Brandon Scherff obviously went to Jacksonville. We talked about that. Laken Tomlinson signed with the Jets for 3 years, $40 million. Connor Williams signed with the Dolphins for 2 years, $14 million. James Daniels signed with Pittsburgh. They're really working on trying to fix that offensive line. Signed there for 3 years, 26.5. Austin Corbett signed with the Panthers for 3 years, 30. Alex Kappa signed with the Bengals for 4 years, $40 million. Mark Glowinski signed with the Giants for 3 years, $20 million. Ted Karras also signed by the Cincinnati Bengals for 3 years. And AJ Cann was signed by the Texans for 2 years.
And note how not a single one of them were re-signed. They were all signed. So it's a lot of movement.
Yeah, a lot of movement comparatively, especially to the tackle and the center positions. But now moving on to the defense and what you were about to say.
Yeah, so right a little while before the show, probably the biggest news of today, I don't even know if you could say that, but Von Miller is going to Buffalo. Very surprising. He is getting paid 6-year, $120 million. Ian Rappaport said that that's $70 million over the first 4 years and nearly $51 million in guarantees. So like the first 4 are more important than the overall 6 that in those numbers. But really, really interesting. And there were reports that, the Rams were trying their best, that McVay was kind of pulling at his heartstrings, was the exact way of phrasing it. But Buffalo worked all day today to try and convince him. And in the end, they win out. And it's a huge win for them.
Yeah, and I will say, like, it's crazy. I was not expecting him to get anywhere near that long and that much. But, when we finally got the guarantees, like, I think you said around 51 guaranteed, like, that's less than half the contract. That makes a ton more sense. Like, he's going to be 33 this season. If he plays all 6 years, he will be almost 40 by the time this contract is over. And I just couldn't see a way that was going to happen. And Von Miller's great, but 40, like, that's a lot for a guy not named Tom Brady,
of 40,
apparently.
Andrew Whitworth retired. That was other
he did.
news. So R.I.P.
Well, not R.I.P. He's still alive, but don't scare people. He was very old. He was very old. Don't scare people.
I love him. We did that whole segment where we put pictures of him on the screen.
True. I'm just saying.
We just forgot to mention it. Things keep popping back in our head, but continue.
Yeah. But yeah, so a little shocking, but in the end, like, I think, that was something I mentioned last week that I thought the Bills needed to address was their pass rush, and Von Miller is going to help address that for sure. It's a really great signing. I'm very glad that he didn't go to the Cowboys because there were a lot of rumors of that. God. Yeah. And speaking of the Cowboys and the defensive line, Randy Gregory signed a contract with them, or planned to, and then like 10 minutes later said, "Nah, I'm going to go to the Denver Broncos for the exact same contract."
The Cowboys social media team put on, "We signed Randy Gregory" on their Twitter with like that cool graphic that they have going on. It was the best part of my day.
And then the Broncos just put a meme or a GIF and it just said surprise as they signed Randy Gregory. I think so. The reporting that came out was there was language in the Cowboys contract that is apparently very typical to their contracts, but not in other teams. It has to do with, I believe, drug-related suspensions and stuff like that, and losing guarantees. So apparently that's what ended up being the very big reasoning for the switch to the Broncos. But again, thrilled. I love when the Cowboys fail miserably at doing things. So,
and this is great. By the way, Blake says your hair looks great as always.
I know.
We were actually talking about that before the show, Blake.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is probably the most outraged I've seen Cowboys fans in a while, and Cowboys fans have rightfully been outraged in a while. They just keep doing this status quo of what they've been doing and keeps not working, and they keep staying on path like a derailed train, and it is hilarious at times.
I love derailed trains.
One of those times.
And also the Giants are signing tight end Ricky Seals-Jones per source.
Oh,
So
interesting.
that is your Evan Ingram replacement,
I
apparently.
like it.
But yeah, so some
I
other
think he was a free agent. Interesting.
I guess I'm trying to remember where he was last year. He was in Arizona, I think, 2 years ago, but I forget where he was last year. It might have been Arizona.
Orange.
Honestly, he might have gotten injured.
Wasn't he? No, Commanders.
Oh, was he?
No, I'm not percent sure.
You look it up. I'm going to go through the rest of
Okay.
the defensive line, bigger signings. Back to the Jaguars, they signed Folo Runso
Yeah.
Fatukasi. They signed him. He is an interior defensive lineman for 3 year, $30 million. BJ Hill re-signed with the Bengals for the same amount. DJ Jones signed with the Denver Broncos for the same amount as well, 3 years, $30 million. The Broncos are working on shoring up that pass rush again after losing some of that in the trade to acquire Russell Wilson. Sebastian Joseph Day signed with the Chargers for 3 years, $24 million. Malik Collins went to Houston for 2 years. And we also had the Bills sign a couple of guys, Tim Settle, Daquan Jones. And yeah, those are the big interior guys. Exterior, obviously Von Miller, but also Chandler Jones was a pretty big one. He signed with the Las Vegas Raiders not long before this podcast started. We don't have the amounts yet, but that came not long after they announced that they were cutting Carl Nassib and also trading away Yannick Ngakoue. Defensive end. I think they acquired. I swear he's gotten traded like 8 times in the past 2 years. I'm pretty sure. I think it was Jacksonville, somewhere. Jacksonville, Minnesota, Indianapolis, Las Vegas, maybe. And now he is off to Indianapolis.
You said it weird the first time.
Yeah. Whoops. Regardless, Yannick Ngakoue went to Indianapolis, and they sent back guy whose name I love, Rocky something Sin. You Sin. Oh my God. Dan
says that Chandler Jones' contract as of right now is 3 years, $51 million.
Okay. That's Rocky Ya-Sin. That's the cornerback that they sent back to Las Vegas. So Las Vegas got rid of a lot of their defensive line depth, but got Chandler Jones in free agency for roughly 3 years, $51 million. So that's awesome. Rock Ya-Sin. It's funny. The comments are always like a minute behind. Mm-hmm. So while I'm up here struggling, making an idiot of myself, people are trying to help.
Yeah. And then you couldn't remember. And I was like, Washington. And then they 2 seconds later go Washington. Yeah.
Then, so, but yeah, so Emmanuel Ogbah signed with the Miami Dolphins for 4 years, $65 million. It's a lot. And again, I don't know how I feel like every year they sign just like a crap ton of defensive players to massive contracts. And I don't know where any of that money goes because they keep doing it. Whatever. Harold Landry re-signed with the Titans, and Hassan Reddick signed with the Philadelphia Eagles. I made a big deal out of that because I'm an Eagles fan and I care more about it than the other ones. He is from New Jersey, grew up an Eagles fan, and also went to Temple, #Temple Tough, which is the university in Philly. So he's returning to where he played his college ball in the same stadium. And he tweeted, "I'm coming home, #Fly Eagles Fly." And I cried. So it was a great day for me. Did not expect us to get a guy like Hassan Reddick.
I'm very happy for you. No, it's a big signing. I think it's great. And I love the coming home stories. Like I love those ones that go back to, where they started.
Like Joe Flacco coming back to the Eagles. It always works out well.
Oh, yeah, always.
Every time.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I want the Lions to take, oh my God, Michigan guy.
Oh.
In the draft.
Yeah. Thibodeau?
Yeah, no. Wrong one. Next one.
Aiden Hutchison.
Yes, there we go. Couldn't remember the name.
Thibodeau was the only name I could think of, and I was pretty sure it was wrong, but I wanted to say it, so there was no dead air.
I love saying that name, but no, it's the same reason. Like I want them to sign Hutchinson. It's seeing here behind together.
Yep, it's great. Wait, do you see the comments on that side or that side?
Well, it's again. Remember, it's flipped, so it's on. If I'm looking at it, it's on my right side.
Oh, okay.
No
one cares about this.
And it points
thank you, Blake.
So.
Aiden Hutchison. Yep. But yeah, so a bunch of defensive linemen got a bunch of monies. Linebackers, the big one, Bobby Wagner, still has not signed anywhere. Again, there are rumors about the Cowboys. I swear to
It's really
God,
good.
they already have 90 linebackers. They draft one in the first round every year.
Yeah.
They don't need him. But also, I just kind of hope they fumble the bag and he goes anywhere else.
Yeah.
There are rumors that Russell Wilson is recruiting him to come join him in Denver, which would be a bunch of fun, I guess.
To do again, as long as he like plays the part, that's like I'll go to the Cowboys, and then he goes to Denver. I hope he
that's the
plays
dream.
that part. That would
That's the dream.
Yeah.
But honestly, just send every good free agent to the AFC West and just make their games and put all of them on national television and make them all very entertaining.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's shaping up to be.
It is.
But yeah, not a ton of linebacker movement yet. And then the last one, do you want to take us into the cornerbacks? A couple bigger names have been moving around.
Yes. Let me just
or staying
down.
still.
Yeah.
But
JC Jackson was probably the biggest one. He signed with the Chargers on a 5-year, $82.5 million contract. So he's getting paid. Carlton Davis is going back to the Buccaneers for 3 years, $44.5. Let's see. Darius Williams went to Jacksonville. I'm pretty sure you mentioned that one already. Charvarius Ward signed with San Francisco 49ers for 3 year, $40.5 million. DJ Reed Jr. signed with the Jets for 3 years, $33 million. I mean, I don't really know if there's any other really big ones down here.
Yeah, I mean, those are the biggest ones. Yeah. And it's exactly what we talked about last week when we were talking about places for especially JC Jackson. Like the Chargers just made too much sense. They had the cap room to sign him to the deal he wanted, and they had a major need at cornerback, and their defense, needed to get better. They made a trade for someone. Did we talk about that?
Who?
The Chargers on the defensive line.
So. I don't think so.
The Chargers to pair with, do they have Joey Bosa or Nick Bosa? Either way, they traded for Khalil Mack. I believe
we didn't talk about that.
Yeah, again, it happened like Thursday or Friday of last week, and that feels like a month ago. But they traded for Khalil Mack, which is really, really cool. And they are just loading up on defense, which all of a sudden, not that it wasn't already important, but seems even more important if you're going to be facing Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes 4 times a year. And I guess Derek Carr, you can throw him in there for 6 times a year, but whatever. That division is going to be a boat race, and it's going to be incredible and must-see television if it wasn't already. But yeah, they're loading up on both sides of the ball. Surprised they haven't signed any tight ends. They did tender Donald Parham, former XFL legend Donald Parham. So right now he might be the only guy there. It's something I'm just saying. Donald Parham might be a thing. And they had a rookie, Trey McKitty, but we'll see.
I didn't think we didn't do safeties, right?
Oh, no, we didn't. And there's been a crap ton of safeties.
Yeah.
None of them to the Eagles.
Marcus Williams signed with the Ravens for 5 years, $70 million. Jesse Bates was franchise tagged. We talked about that. Marcus May signed with the Saints, 3 years, $28.5. Quandre Diggs re-signed with Seattle for 3 years, $40. Jordan Whitehead signed with the Jets for 2 years, $14.5 million. I like that one a lot.
That was a good signing.
Yeah.
I wanted him on the Eagles too.
I know. Devin McCourty.
I wanted all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody on the safety list. Devin McCourty re-signed with the Patriots, 1 year, $9 million. No, not a million years. Justin Reed signed with the Chiefs, 3 years, $31 million. Xavier Woods signed with the Panthers, 3 years, 15.75.
Yeah, so Justin Reed, I think, was one of, if not the first kind of domino to fall in this like inflated safety market, which was really interesting. The news came out afterward that the Chiefs never even made an offer to Tyrann Mathieu, who is their pending free agent safety. And they just offered, Justin Reed that money. Justin Reed was a guy, again, I really liked him. I really wanted him on the Eagles because I thought he was talented. And I thought he wasn't going to cost as much as Marcus Williams, who, like you said, made 5 years, $70 million, which was a lot. It's a lot of money. I mean, the Saints had to follow that up by signing a lesser guy for a smaller contract because they were losing him. But yeah, also good for Quandre Diggs, older than some of these guys, coming off an injury, still got a decent bag. What are the Seahawks doing? whatever. It's
That's
fine. It's
the
fine.
question. If you had answers to that, you could probably like solve world peace or something.
I wish that I could. But yeah, so a lot of movement in the safety market, and we still have.
You have Kyle Hamilton coming out of the draft too, who's like one of the most dynamic safeties that has like graced the draft in a while.
And a lot of people think that, I mean, some people think that he is the best prospect in the draft. He's at least top 5 on most people's boards. Where he ends up getting taken is very all over the place.
It's so
because
fluid.
He's a safety.
Mm-hmm.
Like he realistically, he could go from top 5 to, almost the early 20s, because safeties are just one of those positions that aren't normally valued all that much, especially when they're younger, because it's such you just have to be so intelligent. And
it's very specific with scheme too. Like safeties are very specific to a scheme of a team. I like that rhyme a lot, but I've seen him go anywhere from 3 to probably, like you said, 20 was probably the main place of where I've seen him.
I saw Bucky Brooks, I believe it was, had the Eagles taking him at 15. I don't know who paid him to do that.
I've seen the Giants take him with their second pick. I've seen that.
I love Bucky Brooks, and I hope that happens, because if he falls to 15, then I'll be happy forever. Also a Notre Dame guy, so my dad will be thrilled. Also, thank you, Dan, for the God bless you. But yeah, I mean, again, the big name to not drop yet on that safety list is Tyrann Mathieu. I haven't really even heard whispers about what he's doing, so it's really interesting. It does sound like it's going to end up being less than maybe we were expecting. So yeah, I'm intrigued. I assume he'll probably go to a competitor, chase another ring, but we'll see.
Wouldn't doubt it. Yeah, well, that's the craziness of the past couple of days. I can't wait for it to like literally never end. I mean, while we were on the show, it was like 3 new ones that weren't on our list that we made 10 minutes prior to showtime. But yeah, it's exciting. And I think, is there any teams that stand out to you to having a really good free agency so far?
I mean, the Bills all of a sudden. I mean, I think that they did a really good job. Obviously Deshaun Watson can really change this offseason for some team.
You said you like Jacksonville.
Yeah, I give Jacksonville more credit than I think a lot of people will, because they got a lot of really solid defensive players too, and I think they needed that. And also they released Carlos Hyde, which they should have done last year when they signed him. Yeah. But Urban Meyer's a moron, so it's fine. I think the Raiders are doing good too. I think they're very quick to rebuild it in what the new regime's ideal image is. They're just kind of going right to it. Also, the Chargers, they're going all in, and that's fun. So.
Yeah. For me, I don't know. I think the Jets are doing better than expected. I didn't expect the Jets to go after some of these guys the way they did. I think the Jets are doing fairly well. Like you said, Bills all of a sudden. I mean, the Bills were doing decent, but the addition of Von Miller is just a huge step up for them. I mean, they're going to jump to like Super Bowl favorites. I mean, they probably already were, but I think those are my 2. And I think your opinion on Jacksonville changed my opinion on Jacksonville a little bit.
That's the goal.
So I think that jumped up. I do appreciate you for that, because I think that looking at it through that lens, while it could be seen as overly optimistic, is also a great way to look at it, I think.
Yeah, my main thought on that is like, well, what do you want them to do then? Dan, pointed out the fantasy implications of Brandon Bolden. We did talk a little bit about him earlier. I just think he's a good signing for the Raiders from a personnel standpoint. But yeah, it's just like, what would you want Jacksonville to do then? Like, I don't see an option that makes people happy. So they suck. We know nobody wants to play there. We get it. Now, what are you going to do about it? Like, what's your solution if you hate theirs? So.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Anyway, we can wrap it up now. I'm sure next week will be just as chaotic and entertaining. Duncan, tell us where people can find you.
You can find me on Twitter at mpduncan75. You can find me here Wednesday nights with Ashley, hosting the Undroppables Playbook, and on your streaming services afterward. You can find
You didn't say the time.
8:00 on Wednesdays, Eastern Daylight Time, I think now, technically. EDT is officially what it might be, maybe legally forever now. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
crazy.
Very confused by that. Getting off topic again, but you can find me in the Undroppables Patreon Discord thing.
It.
I know, because I always forget, but this time I remember. You can sign up for that at patreon.com/theundroppables, I think. And yeah, so you can talk to me there if you so please.
Or anyone on the team.
Or you can just message me on Twitter, which is fine too. But that's where I am. So, I thought that I just got another breaking thing from Adam Schefter, but because it says he retweeted someone that said Broncos country, baby, let's ride, but it's Sierra.
Oh, we love Sierra.
We're
going to talk about the fact that we were both absolutely fooled by the Undroppables Twitter account this week and their push notifications.
I wasn't fooled. I was just stressed because it had to do with the Eagles. That's beside the point. Where can people find you, Ashley?
They can find me on Twitter at Ashley_Marie with 2 A's at the beginning of Ashley. You can find me and all my content with the Undroppables, which is at the Undroppables on Twitter or on their website, theundroppables.com. You could also find me in the Discord. That Patreon subscription gets you access to all our premium Discord channels, and here and in Massachusetts.
Don't tell people where you live.
You tell people where you live all the time. I didn't say where.
Yeah, but no one wants to come talk to me, Ashley. People would come find you.
No one's going to come find me.
I don't know about that. But we will see you next week. Have a wonderful days.
Free agency.
And enjoy the NFL.
Yeah.
Bye, Ashley.
Bye, guys. Bye, Duncan.